started from cyanobacteria and now a collectively important kingdom of organisms in the whole biosphere. With almost 390,000 species, plants are a diverse bunch with diverse characteristics. Plants are able to reproduce and evolve through time and are adaptive in most climates and environments. With the diversity of species comes with the diversity of reproduction, asexual and sexual reproduction. How do they do it? Welcome to Earth and Life Science Rewind in Asexual and Sexual Reproduction in Plants. Greetings, senior high school students. I am teacher Gian and welcome to Earth and Life Science Rewind video reviewers for Earth and Life Science. This time, we will describe different ways of how plants reproduce, asexually and sexually. Reproduction of plants are classified into two. Asexual meaning the only lone parent copies itself and its genetic information to form an identical offspring. Sexual reproduction means two parents fuse their genetic information to produce a unique offspring. Asexual reproduction produces plants that are genetically identical to the parent plant without mixing male and female gametes or sex cells that takes place. Why asexual? First, increased reproduction rate, faster reproduction for some plant species. It's time and energy efficient because you don't have to wait for a partner and only one parent is needed. Bulbs, grass, potatoes, and some herbs are able to reproduce asexually. Asexual reproduction can come naturally through modified stems, runners, rhizomes, tubers, bulbs, leaves that are modified, bulbs, roots, and even a special way of fertilizing oneself with only one parent called apomixis. Can also be artificial through cutting, grafting, layering, and cultured tissue, propagation of tissues of those plants. Let's start off with the natural asexual reproduction in plants with modified stems. Plants can have modified stems that are runners or stolons that run all over the soil surface, build terminal buds that can reproduce other plants. Rhizomes are modified stems as well that grow under the soil, producing new roots. Grasses have runners or stolons, and ginger can have rhizomes. Tubers are thicker stems that are capable of producing a new plant. Potatoes and purple yams reproduce this way. Bulbs and stems are covered with leaves that can produce new plants. Onions and garlic have bulbs, can reproduce. Carrots and beets are capable of reproducing through modified roots. And bryophyllum and kalanchoe have leaves that have small buds in their margins and can be used for reproduction as well. Onions and tulips buds can also grow and multiply. And apomixis is a kind of fertilization that can be done without gametes of another parent. Just one plant is enough to fertilize itself. It can produce seeds without needing fertilization from another parent. Asexual reproduction can be done artificially. You can force the plant to reproduce by first cutting. Cutting involves pieces of stems cut from the parent tree and reproducing them as offspring. Spinach and roses can be products of cutting. Grafting is a desired cutting or scion is attached to the stem of another plant and remains rooted in the ground. You can mix plant species and reproduce them through grafting. Layering involves bending the plant branches or stems so that they can touch the ground and force them to asexually reproduce once the roots or the stems touch the ground. You can also air layer as well. You can put around soft tissues around a stem and cut it. It can be forced to reproduce as well, just like the ground layer. Beautiful orchids and bonsai plants are products of layering. Micropropagation or tissue culture is a method of propagating a large number of plants from just a single plant, just getting its tissues, propagating it under laboratory conditions, just like young cabbages and mustard. Now, for sexual reproduction in plants, it involves the production of male and female sex cells, or what we call gametes. And the process is carried out in between and within flowers. The flowers are parts of the plants that contain the sex organs. In the middle of the flower is the pistil, the female part that contains the egg cells or the ovules. Stamen is the male part that releases the anther or the pollen that contains the sperm. The transfer of the male gametes to the female ovules is the process called pollination. So you can see here that the anther or the sperm is getting transferred to the pistil, okay, inside and fertilizing the ovules. After pollination occurs, First, fertilization happens and the ovules grow into seeds within a fruit. So here you see flowers developing fruits and the ovules developing into seeds. Pollination can be self-made, meaning the pollen from the anther is deposited on the stigma of the same flower. So one plant with different flowers can be possible for pollination. It's productive but less genetic diversity, meaning the plants are almost identical. Cross-pollination is when the pollen from another one of the flower to the stigma of another flower of another plant. Two or more plants are needed for cross-pollination. Less productivity but more genetic diversity. What happens inside the pistil is a double fertilization. Involves two sperm cells. One sperm cell fertilizes the egg to form the zygote or the seed, and one fuses with polar nuclei called endosperm. So the zygote and the endosperm around it are formed through fertilization. That is why seeds contain nutrition around it. That is the endosperm, ensuring that the seed will survive even after separating from its parent. So here you can see the seed or the zygote, and here around it is the endosperm, the nutrition, the corn kernel within the seed. Applying the concept of plant reproduction, every science student should try gardening simple plants in their homes. Onions, gingers, Indian spinach, or alugbati can be reproduced asexually. Citrus like calamansi and lemons, peppers and tomatoes can be grown by pollination, and they are simple and easy to take care of. It's environmental friendly and teaches you responsibility and can help with food production and food security within your home. You should try it. Try taking care of these simple plants and maybe you can grow your own food in the near future. To summarize our lesson, plants reproduce both asexually and sexually. Asexual means the parent copies its genetic information to form identical offspring. Stems, roots, and leaves are used to reproduce. It can also be reproduced artificially. Sexual reproduction means two parents fuse genetic information, the gametes, to produce unique offspring. Plants transfer the male gametes to the female ovules in a process called pollination and fertilization. Now, let's test your knowledge. Pause the video. Try to answer this 5-item quiz. You can see the answers later on after resuming it. So video resumes in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here are the answers in Test Your Knowledge portion. Thank you for watching this video regarding asexual and sexual reproduction in plants in Earth and Life Science Rewind video reviewers for Earth and Life Science. I am teacher Gian, and thank you. See you next time. Study smart.